Welcome to today's Seidokan Saturday. I'm back. So today's technique has a couple of different names depending on which syllabus in Japanese or Okinawan karate you look at, but it's basically the elbow strike. Now, part of the reason it has two different names, which I'll tell you in a second, well, you probably read it in the title already. We have empi uchi or hiji ate, okay? Uchi usually refers to a strike, so does ate, as in atemi or striking techniques. So empi uchi or hiji ate, essentially the same thing. In most places, most schools use them relatively interchangeably. Now I do a thing that's kind of a quirk of mine, okay? On my syllabus list, it's empi uchi, period. But the little twist that I put on it is, if we're striking only with the elbow alone, hiji ate, and it's the point of the elbow, I call it hiji ate, the point of the elbow. So in this case, instead of hitting with the forearm, I'm hitting with the point of the elbow, which would scrape, rather than scrape across, would drive. Same thing here. I'm not hitting with my triceps, I'm hitting with the point of the elbow itself. That's my hiji ate. When I use the term empi uchi, and again, this is 100% me. There's absolutely zero linguistic foundation because they are identical terms. But when I use empi uchi, that's when I'm striking with the forearm. My elbow is leading, but the impact is actually happening on the forearm, the ulna, rather than the elbow point itself, or with the back of the triceps in the reverse elbowing technique. Typically, on a rising and an inward strike, I'm also pinning my opponent's head so it doesn't go anywhere, and I'm smashing with the whole end, the last 3 inches here of my arm, as opposed to hitting with the point of the elbow, which goes further forward and cutting. Now, the reason I make that distinction is because we have them in kata variously. And different instructors do this slightly differently. A perfect example of this is in Anaku, the first one where we actually use an elbow technique, where we've just, I'll do it in the direction here where we're going to go. So we've just done this punch here. We come around and strike. Now some people strike as if they're hitting out over here. Because of the bunkai as I do it, I'm striking with my forearm here. Reason being, the attack is coming, this hand low blocks, circles to the side, and I'm smashing the side of his head. If I've stepped correctly, I'm right beside the guy. Now we can, if he ends up over here, let's say I've blocked his technique as I come around. If he's further away from me, then yes, I can kind of pin my arm, which helps me extend the point of the elbow and hit him over here. So it really is depending on where I'm visualizing the opponent in relationship to my body position. That's one of the first ones where we have the elbow technique. So we start, as always, with our empi uchi striking by coming inward, standing in place. Then we rising, right? Grabbing the head, striking upwards. Then we have our hiji, which goes up, down, in, out, back. Up, out, in, out, back. So we can strike in all of those directions, rising, in, back. Rising, down, back, in, and we work them on the bag and so forth. Don't always do a lot of stepping with this one. It's always good to step with everything as in Kutsadachi walking, like we do with all of our techniques. But that's the hiji ate or empi uchi strike. Another place where we sort of have it, and it's referred to this way in, I'm trying to remember, in Best Karate, the Seidokan Encyclopedia of Kata series, when we're doing Pinyan Sandan, they call this an empi uchi as a block. Okay? I don't see it as a block, but that's the terminology that they use. I see it more as a throw. But again, even on this, you'll see this in the, I want to say it's the lapsao in Wing Chun, where we're turning our elbow in to block before we come to the strike. Okay? So even in Wing Chun there is that, but it tends to be more the forearm as opposed to the actual elbow doing the blocking. All right, that's a lot of information. The bottom line is basically practice hitting people with elbows. Again, my ranges, and if you go back to the fighting range videos that I've had way back, I mean, what are we at, 111, 112, 110 videos, something like that. My fighting range, I can kick from here, but I can't punch from here. I can't front leg kick from here. A little bit closer, I can front leg kick, I can front hand, reverse hand punch. A little bit closer, I can knee, still can't elbow. A little bit closer, now I can strike with elbows. When you're doing your bag work or your slow motion controlled sparring, make sure you're including your elbow work so you can work at coming in to the various angles from which we can strike with our elbows. Empi, uchi, hiji ate, empi, hiji. Forearm, back of arm, point of elbow. Beautiful strike, very combatively useful, especially when you're in that close engagement distance, which tends to be where actual fighting occurs. That's the techniques we want to be using. That's our technique for today. We'll get on to our doubles coming up shortly. Until next week, as always, keep practicing.